Welcome to Count 400. We are on the second part of advertising research. Um, we talked about two elements of copy testing. We're now looking at the third element, which is conative research. Conative research has to do with behavior, and it may be the most important dependent variable that advertising researchers cover. There are two main categories of behavior that we look at. One is buying predispositions, and the other is purchasing behavior. Now, buying predispositions are what you are likely to buy. The problem with that is that you are you don't necessarily know what you're going to buy. So if you were asked, would you be likely to buy this product? You might say yes, but when you got to the store, you might actually do it. Or the opposite might occur. So this is actually very difficult to assess. And the second is actually purchasing behavior. Now, purchasing behavior is what you actually do when you go someplace and buy. And you can track purchasing behavior through receipts, and that's why a lot of places like Walgreens have clubs where you can go to and you get a discount if you use your card, and they're tracking actually what you buy and if it changes from week to week. Okay, so we finished copy testing. We're going to look at media research. That is the second Roman numeral on our three. So media research usually involves, focuses on media effectiveness and exposure, and you've had this before. You have had COM 320, and COM 320? No, it's COM 322. You've had COM 322 and media planning, and that's what this kind of research is. It's looking at media planning. Two of the things that they look at in media planning, very important for this, is effectiveness and reach and frequency, which depends how effective the ad is going to be. And so reach would be how many people actually see the ad. Then they have different kinds of reach, like effective reach and things like that. But if you're looking at in broadcasting, WEEK would have a reach of how far a circle around its towers that it actually reaches and how many people it actually reaches. So that would be an example of reach. And then frequency is how many times a person hears an ad, and usually you have to hear an ad several times before it's effective. That's why you might watch an ad late at night or in the morning, and it has a couple of ads for some place to eat, so it really gets in your head. And they disagree on how many it actually takes. Some people say it just takes one. Other people say it has to be up to 7. And it really depends on what kind of ad that you're using. Now we're going to move on to number 3, which is campaign assessment research. And it's really a combination of the previous two. Copy testing and media research. Campaign assessment testing is going to track a study and evaluate it throughout. It may take the form of a pre-test, post-test, and then tests along the way. And it's a way to see if the the campaign's progressing. If you find out early on that something's not working, you can change and go to another ad campaign. If early on you find something is wildly successful that you didn't think, maybe it was going to be a one-off ad, and instead maybe you turn it into a series of ads. Now let's talk a little bit about qualitative techniques in advertising research. We're going to start with a thing called projective techniques. And basically what this means, I use in advertising quite a bit, it's kind of qualitative research, but it's getting people to project their what they're thinking out. And that is very helpful in advertising. One example of this, one of the early examples of this, was a thing called ink blot tests by a man named Rorschach. And what they would do is they would take an ink blot and put it in a piece of paper and smack 2 pieces of paper together, open them, and they would have a random ink blot. They would ask people to look at those and project what they saw. And it was random, but people would come up with different things like, butterflies and dragons and things like that. Well, psychologists would use that years ago to predict whether a person was mentally healthy or not. Later, they found out that it wasn't a very good way to predict mental health, and that it had more to do with the person who was giving the test than the one taking it. So, but there are a lot of advertising techniques that are based on that. One of them, projective ad would say, what is the first thing that pops into your head when you think of a soft drink? And so you would say, oh, maybe Coke is the first thing I think, or something else. And that shows top of mind awareness. That shows that's the first thing that was in your head. And advertisers strive very hard to get top of mind awareness. Another way to use qualitative research, moving on from projective techniques, is a thing called respondent diaries. And this is where you can write down in a small booklet, a diary, your thoughts at different times. They used to use it for Nielsen studies of what people were watching on television. And I was part of one of those a long time ago, and helps develop the ratings and things like that. So respondent diaries were one thing. Sometimes they're used for so that people can, researchers can find out what people are thinking when they're home alone. And so people might write things down, and these are thoughts that they might not think if a researcher was there questioning them. So it allows researchers to have access to subjects' thoughts when they're alone. Another thing is directed observation. And this is where a researcher observes what somebody is doing, directly observes what they are doing. So it could be maybe they put some toys, maybe you're working for Hasbro and they put some toys in the room and they see how the kids interact, if they go up to the toys, if they ignore the toys. That would be directed observation. Two more commonly used ones are, one is called pantry checks. And that is where perhaps a grocery store chain might hire somebody to, they will get somebody who will agree to go with them and look at their pantry maybe once a week. I knew somebody who used to do this research, and so they would go in. Some people would take pictures of it and see where the food is positioned, whether the ads are visible, how much they're using, etc. The person I talked to actually used a video camera and videoed everything so they could get a good idea of what the pantry, or now they sometimes call them refrigerator checks. Sometimes they still call them pantry checks because that's what they always used to call them. Another is, along with that, is accompanied shopping. Sometimes a directed observation is when somebody goes with somebody else who has agreed, they've been paid for somebody to watch their shopping, and they go in and they pay attention to what they're looking at, where they go to first, how they wander through the grocery store, what catches their attention, what things that the grocer was trying to catch their attention that didn't catch their attention. All of that is a kind of directed observation, and those are popular qualitative techniques in advertising.